telling me that you have a way.
Let's see if it works this time. Last time it kind of stalled out too, right? When this went haywire. You guys still hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
That's weird, but it's just sitting there stalled, right?
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Pink, why don't you undo that, and then I will do it on my end. I think perhaps that might help.
The second one I'm referring to is called a deferred sales trust.
Real eye opener.
It kicks in and it stalls out.
Are ways that people can
Pink, you're there.
Use the regulatory.
So once you undo it, and I'll do it on my end. I'll just screen share it. Just go live on Restream. Hey everybody, if you're joining us, we have a little technical difficulties. Usually we're running really great. We're gonna play this little short video to give you a little inspiration here, and then we're gonna kick it off. We're gonna be talking about the collapse of FTX and what you can do about this moving forward. What you can do to get out of crypto when it makes sense, so you can defer capital gains tax. But first off, I want to kick it off with this little video here, and then we will all be rocking and rolling. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Hope everyone had a wonderful time, and I'm feeling grateful this morning for a number of things. And then we will be here. We're so close. This is the YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out, by the way, subscribe. We're putting out cool, really great content, and with some really great guests. And then, of course, stuff on the Deferred Sales Trust, so you can really figure all that out. I think I need to go over here. YouTube. Like that. No. Go incognito window. Jake, did you have like cranberry with your turkey?
I went on a trip to do a little financial assessment on an investment in the country of Colombia. All the wife and kids, they went and hung out with my family, and they made the difference for me not being there. They had a good time.
Okay, well, if they had some cranberry for you, how to exit crypto. We're just going to skip the video today. You know why? Because for some reason I can't quite find the video that I want to go to. So here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome everybody to another Capital Gains Tax Solutions Deferred Sales Trust Masterclass. Today we're talking all about how to exit crypto before another FTX type of collapse. And for those who don't know us or me or the company or what we're doing here, my name is Brett Swarts, and I'm founder of Capital Gains Tax Solutions, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options, which sometimes can lead to not selling when you want to sell high. And sometimes stuff like FTX can happen, and all of a sudden everything's gone. And this is why we believe we are here, is to help you not feel trapped by being able to exit when you want to exit, because of maybe capital gains tax. Maybe you're hesitant to sell or exit, but you didn't have a clear exit plan, or a clear way to diversify, or a clear team of people. Because guess what? It's not just about the strategy or the way to exit. It's not only that. It's you want to hire the who, or have the who on your dream team to help you actually build the wealth in a way that can be sustainable, that can actually put you in the position to maybe buy back into crypto when it's low again, right? So we want to kind of lay that out for you today, kind of talk about what's happened with FTX and how you don't have to face feeling trapped by exiting your crypto. By the way, it also works for businesses, real estate, primary homes. It can save a failed 1031 exchange. Yes, this is known as the Deferred Sales Trust, not to be confused with the Delaware Statutory Trust. We call this the Netflix way of exit planning versus the Blockbuster 1031 exchange. And so that's what we're going to do. And we're going to kind of really talk about a couple deal stories that we've done. We're going to also answer any questions that anyone might have. And if you're wanting to join us next week, we do this every single Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern. We want to invite you. You can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com and you can register there. That being said, I am joined by some amazing folks. In fact, The Jake Miller is with us. He is a CFP, Certified Financial Planner. He's entrepreneurial, and he's just really, really, really smart. Jake, how are we doing today?
Doing very good, Brett. Thank you for the introduction. Ready for a great mastermind. I love it when people here in the panel have questions. We can make the discussion very real and very specific, because that's what the Deferred Sales Trust should be, customized to everybody's situation.
Absolutely. And we also have the Pierce York, who's a part of Capital Gains Tax Solutions. He's also a luxury realtor in Newport Beach, commercial real estate agent as well. And he helps to co-host the podcast these days. Pierce York, how are we doing today, sir?
Doing fantastic. Had a great Thanksgiving. So excited to get back to it and get some stuff rolling.
Absolutely. What are you most thankful for? That weather, the beach, or that mojito you have in your hand right now?
Yeah. There's no mojito at the moment, but maybe later on. But no, I'm really thankful for just the family, especially the wife, who's just amazing. Does way more than I ever could. So her for sure.
That's
the
good.
Kids are still trying to figure out whether or not they're on my nice list or bad list right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the wife for sure.
Yeah, man. There you go, man. Happy wife, happy life, man. Yeah. So, well, good, great. So let's start with a little bit more of the vision. Jake, you want to lay it out as well? I know I laid it out a little bit here, but maybe tie it into crypto and what we're here for.
Absolutely. For those people who have highly appreciated assets and they don't want to be held down, incarcerated by timing limitations or by events, they are able to get out of those assets and into something else because of the Deferred Sales Trust. So anybody who's otherwise going to have a big taxable event because of the sale of a highly appreciated asset can avoid that taxable event, or at least defer it down the road, and sell the asset, reinvest in what you choose to diversify, essentially be liberated into be able to invest and move money from asset to asset the way that you would otherwise do if you weren't concerned about the taxes.
Perfect. Exactly right. So let's dive right into the topic at hand, which is kind of interesting. This Market Watch article came out by Mr. Kenneth Rogoff about an hour ago, in fact, and it says, "Will crypto survive? Sadly, the FTX debacle is unlikely to be the last." And essentially, the collapse of the wonder kid Sam Bankman-Fried's $32 billion crypto empire, FTX, looks to go down as one of the great financial debacles of all time. With a storyline full of celebrities, politicians, sex, drugs, and the future looks bright for producers of feature films and documentaries. And unfortunately, there was a huge amount of cryptocurrency lost, stolen, fraudulent transfers, just an absolute debacle. And part of that has to do with what's interesting, Jake. I learned a little bit this week doing some research. Is they actually had a company called Amelia and a company called FTX. Right? FTX was the exchange. Amelia was a place where they could create a market. In other words, someone might create a coin or have an idea, and then they would just basically trade it in between themselves to create like there's activity and maybe drive up the price a little bit. They'd also might have like venture capitalists come in at a 3 cents valuation and turn around and sell it for an 8 cents valuation, or pump it up to a 20 cents valuation. But they would create this side thing that would essentially the same people buying and selling the same thing back and forth. And then they'd open up on FTX and they'd say, well, this could be the value, right? And that would start to pump these prices. All that being said, values would go up, and then it's called the pump and dump, and they would get out. But he had one account. The other thing that was really interesting, he had one account where all the stuff was coming in and out of, right? And he had like next to no ledger, right? I think no ledger, like you don't really know. And he's just using like a bank account. He had talked about, he was driving a Toyota Corolla and doing all these different things, but he's actually living in a huge place in the Bahamas and had another place in New York. Just all of the red flags. But now people have lost, right? They've lost. They didn't get out. The crypto has crashed, and now they find themselves in probably a lot of pain, a lot of frustration. And you're saying, what could I have done to prevent this? And is there ways to exit cryptocurrency in a way that's not going to caused me to have to hit with huge capital gains tax. So Jake, any thoughts on what I just said there? You want to connect any of those dots or fill anything in there? You're on mute there, so maybe unmute yourself there.
Yes, absolutely. You asked the question, is there any way that I can get out of crypto without paying the tax? Well, of course, that's why we're here. Crypto oftentimes is a highly appreciated asset. And whether there's going to be another event like this, where there's fraudulent activity and a big crash, a pump and dump, etc., to avoid the ups and downs of the market without having to try to time things, just if you're ready to get out, you can use a deferred sales trust that puts the timing of when you have to pay the tax in your hands. It might be a good time to sell and not necessarily a good time to pay taxes. This allows you to control them differently, meaning you can sell now and pay your taxes later, perhaps after doing some additional tax planning in a year that's more beneficial for you as you're taking large amounts of distributions from your trust, or as you decide to reinvest in other investments that have perhaps some tax benefits to them. So there's a number of things that we can do with the deferred sales trust to help people in these crypto holdings move assets in and out, rebalance so that their portfolio actually achieves their objective.
Absolutely. Before we go into a deal story, Pierce, what kind of investments can the trust make? You know, if somebody's coming out of crypto, and you know, where can they go? What can they invest in, Pierce?
Yeah, so that's what's really nice about the deferred sales trust is that you get the ability to, it's like kind agnostic. So you can go from one asset class to another asset class, unlike a 1031, which really only works for investment real estate. But you could sell anything that's highly appreciated and go into pretty much any investment you want, as long as it's not for, primary use. So you can go from crypto to business and stocks and real estate, or from real estate to, art and crypto and business or whatever. So that's one thing that's really nice. It provides a lot of flexibility that way.
Yeah. And in fact, that leads into the deal story for Jake Miller and I, a client of ours. She's working at a big tech company in California. This is about a year ago or so, maybe a little bit more than that, where she was looking at Bitcoin that she had purchased for $50,000 collectively many, many years ago. And the valuation of all of that Bitcoin she had purchased went to $50 million when Bitcoin hit 54,000 a coin. And so her plan was to exit, but she felt trapped by the capital gains tax. But she knew it was a good time to start to diversify, because this was, this is all of her, majority, 99% of her wealth, right? And so she's going, gosh, I want to exit, but I have a huge capital gains tax. I feel overwhelmed. I feel a little bit trapped because I kind of hit the Bitcoin lottery and I've held on all these years. I haven't sold anything. And she goes, Brett, Jake, this seems too good to be true. But if it's true and I can sell and I can defer the capital gains tax, that's amazing, because I've been wanting to kind of dollar cost average out a little bit. But more than that, I want to use the funds to fund a business venture with my like a longtime friend who's a college roommate. And we want to do this thing together. We have a vision for educating and helping people online, kind of like a Khan Academy, and kind of self-paced education, right? So they're really excited about this, but they don't have the capital to start it up. They have the expertise with being, technology background, working for some of the biggest tech companies in the world. They have the capital and the Bitcoin, or she did at least, but she had the tax that was kind of in the way. So fortunately, she was able to exit $5 million at 54,000 a coin, defer about 1.85 million of tax. And a majority of those funds went right into this business venture, which is going really well. And also a portion of that was able to be diversified in liquid investment grade securities with Jake Miller. And that's going fine as well, especially given where Bitcoin went, right? It went from 54,000 to, I think it's like 16,000 yesterday I saw, which is just crazy, right? It's been hovering between, I think, 12 and 20. I think it's around 16 as of yesterday. So think about that, 54,000 down to 12. So that 5 million, let's do the math on that, Jake, right? If she hadn't have exited at 5 million and not used the deferred sales trust, and then we'll go into if that would have been with FTX, right? Which it wasn't, fortunately, but if it was, what would have happened? But that 5 million at 54,000 a coin, if we take 16,000 a coin divided by 54,000 a coin, that's about 70% less. So that 5 million by 70% is 3.5 million. So it'd be about 1.5 million. So that 5 million would be basically $1.5 million valuation at this point. So instead of not selling at optimal timing, which was about a year and a half ago for her, she was able to sell at optimal timing, defer the capital gains tax, and invest in what she wanted to do. Jake, you want to fill in anything there that I might have missed?
The fact that in the very beginning, she was considering not being able to accomplish all of these things. She wasn't able to invest with her friend and do the startup business simply because she expected to have to pay an enormous amount of taxes, and that there just wasn't going to be the money left over to do everything. And so she was liberated to do more and actually accomplish her dreams, achieve her objectives, simply because she could reinvest with the gross proceeds net of attorney fees rather than net of taxes, which the difference is immense.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And it helped her achieve her vision. And that's part of the 10 freedoms of the Deferred Sales Trust. And by the way, last week we touched on some of those 10 freedoms. You can look that up by going to our YouTube channel, Capital Gains Tax Solutions. But real quick, one of the freedoms that she unlocked here was not only optimal timing freedom, which means she could sell when she wanted to, but it was also investment class freedom where she can diversify. So important to diversify right now. And now more than ever, given what happened with FTX, that you don't want to have all of your capital or a big percentage of your capital, not let alone with Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever other coin that you might have, but with one big exchange company, right? You want to be diversified, either at multiple exchange companies, but even more so sell when it makes sense and diversify into other investment classes. And so she unlocked diversification freedom, optimal timing freedom, and then what was most important to her, which was the driving force, which was the entrepreneurial freedom. She did not want to have to work a W-2 position and build, Google's dream. She wanted to be able to build her and her college good friend roommate's dream, right? And so the Deferred Sales Trust was that vehicle that unlocked these three major freedoms for her, all in one sale, one day, one transaction, as we exited at 54,000 a coin. Now, we did say, hey, 68,000 a coin came up, I think another month later, maybe a month and a half. Hey, do you want to exit more? And she's like, we'll still get to know you guys. I'm like, hey, we get it. But you can, at that point, her 45 million had turned maybe into about 65, 70 million. And now, and we said, you could exit, things could change. Now, we weren't like predicting that things would crash. Like, we're not saying that, but we just thought, wow, it just seems like this is another great opportunity. Unfortunately, things went the other way quickly. And after that, and now here we are. But now let's apply that to FTX, right? So if you were with FTX and you did not exit and you had your majority of your holdings, by the way, the minimum net proceeds, the minimum gain for us is $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain. So if you have crypto for 100,000 or 50,000 or 250, it's too small for us. You do need to have a big enough gain. So I want to make that very clearly up front, unless you have two at 500,000 each. So if you have like a real estate transaction and then $500,000 of crypto that we could exit, there are ways to work with that one, but it needs to be a big enough transaction. Why? Because of the expertise and the cost of the closing of the Deferred Sales Trust has to align collectively, not only for you on your side, but also on our side. Okay. So it's a $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain is the minimum. But had she been at FTX, right? Or if you're at FTX or somewhere like an FTX, like a Celsius that also has been a disaster as well, guess what? It might go to zero, right? And so not only did you not sell at the right time because you felt maybe trapped by capital gains tax, but now you didn't diversify away from this exchange company. Now you've maybe lost everything. And this is what we don't want to have happen to you. We don't want you to feel trapped, not to be able to exit. And so there's really three major questions you want to ask is A, what are you trying to accomplish with the capital, right? What does it mean to you to have diversification, liquidity, optimal timing, right? What is your actual capital gains tax that may be holding you back? And then three, who's the team to help you accomplish what you're wanting to do, right? Whether that be start the new business, buy into real estate, or just put it in some of the biggest companies in the world, the S&P 500 with Jake Miller here. What is it you're trying to accomplish? And as you clarify that, you can start to see how the trust can be that product to solve your challenges. And so, those are my thoughts there. Jake, what are your thoughts on FTX or anything else that I just said right there? Any thoughts you want to add?
Well, I'll go back to the fact that we can diversify amongst all the different investments that you like. There's a lot of direct investments right now that people are able to participate in that are not on an exchange, that are not subject to market fluctuations, that are not subject to presidential elections, etc. that individuals can additionally diversify. A lot of these are Reg D holdings that are, hey, there's this business owner, he's got a great business, he's looking for an individual investor or a group of investors. Other people can participate alongside with him because of the Deferred Sales Trust and how it facilitates people to be eligible for these types of assets and holdings. And that's part work, somebody who's a very strategic financial advisor with a very amazing trustee who's open-minded, and the two of us working together with a client, helping them from an unbiased standpoint, from an investment perspective, choose what's very best to help them accomplish their goals and objectives.
Yeah, and many of our clients are very sophisticated and smart. They already know what they want. They already know how they made their millions, right? All their capital, and they might want to build an apartment complex. They might want to just have it into the stock market. They might want to do a little bit of both. They might want to partner with somebody in another real estate opportunity or a business venture. Could be a number of things, and that's the cool thing about the Deferred Sales Trust is it's very flexible. But we do have some guardrails, right? We got to keep always 20% liquid at all times, right? And that can be liquid investment grade securities typically, right? And we don't want to over concentrate or put you in things that are going to like put too much stress on the trust. And so there's the things that we do have to map out and work with you on. And if you're curious about that, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can schedule a one-on-one consultation, and you can connect with Jake and we can go through it with you. You can also go to strategictaxsolutions.com to connect directly with Jake. So yeah, that's really pretty simple there. I want to open it up for questions. I will tell one other deal story as it pertains to another Deferred Sales Trust client who exited Ethereum at the right time, by the way, and who was able to avoid the majority of his holdings being eliminated or lost at Celsius because he used the Deferred Sales Trust about a year and a half ago. Okay, when Ethereum hit a good mark there. In fact, he exited $5 million to start, and then another $2.5 million a few months later for $7.5 million out of a $13 million portfolio. And he put all of it into investment grade securities. He diversified, and he's waiting. And I called him the other day, and I said, "Are you?" His first name is Peter. I said, "Peter, are you happy?" He says, "I'm thrilled." And I go, "Tell me more." He's like, "Well, third of my holdings of that 13.5 million I had held at Celsius." And he goes, "In fact, I have still some at Celsius that I hadn't exited on the Deferred Sales Trust. And unfortunately, I don't know if I'm going to get any of it back. We're really unknown if we're going to get anything back at all, but it's a complete disaster." And he said, "Had I not done the Deferred Sales Trust, I probably would have still had about a third of it there." And that would have meant, 13.5 million was approximately the value that he had at least a year and a half ago. 33%. That's about $4.4 million. So instead, he was able to exit $7.5 million of his total 13.5, put into the Deferred Sales Trust, not only diversify asset classes, but diversify being in something like a Celsius, right? And then selling at a great time. And so that is a success story. And we're sharing this because we don't want you to not know about this. Should you have, what's the next FTX, right? Or what's the next, if there's another, if you have $1 million gain, $1 million net proceeds, and you want to get out right now, what are the steps you take? Well, you schedule a time of consultation with us, no cost, no obligation consultation. We assess whether or not you are eligible for the Deferred Sales Trust. And then 3, we work to build a business plan to exit everything. Okay. And so that being said, let's open it up for any questions or comments or thoughts. You can either put that in the chat. You can also unmute yourself, and we will answer those here live for you. And as a reminder, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're listening to this right now, just click that little button below, subscribe, and click the little thumbs up. We appreciate the algorithm being encouraged to show more content like this, so that people can get the message out. So we can get the message out to people so they don't have to face not having to exit cryptocurrency or other businesses or real estate. So Pierce, you have a question? Looks like Pierce is open and his mic is live, and there he is. He's sitting by the beach. He doesn't have the mojito, but he is live in Newport Beach. Go, sir.
So I want to just kind of touch on something that, I think is really important. I get a lot of people who, bring up this objection. It's, well, how do I know that you're not just going to run off to the Bahamas or Mexico with my money? And I just kind of want to speak to that as it pertains really particularly to crypto, because all of these exchanges are all commingled. You got Alameda Research, who's creating, their own token selling it back to themselves. You've got bailouts from other exchanges. I've got a decent amount stuck in BlockFi right now. BlockFi is bankrupt because they had a significant portion of our money going out. And I mean, like, if people are going to sit there and be like, well, how do I know that you're not going to run off with my money in Mexico? The truth is that if you hold your money on any one of those centralized exchanges, they are running off to the Bahamas with your crypto, and it's gone. And there's, I don't know how, we're going to get it back or anything like that. So if you're willing to entrust your money or your crypto to a centralized exchange, you should really consider, number one, that's probably not the best move. You should definitely put it in a cold storage. But number two, if you're willing to take that risk, right, then you should be really open to the idea of a deferred sales trust with someone who's, trusted and has your funds not commingled with one another. Each trust is individualized, which means that the funds aren't commingled. You got to have multiple people on it who are going to sign off on these transactions and stuff like that. And you get to control it versus putting it into, a high yield savings account like a BlockFi where they just take your money and they are selling it back to each other, increasing leverage and, all this kind of stuff. And it's just, I didn't realize how corrupted it was until I started, until it really hit home. And I'm looking now okay, Celsius, all of these exchanges are most likely insolvent at this point. So if you can get your money off, get it off now, because if you don't, they're dominoes, they're going to go. So just words to the wise, but I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit, but that's just something that really kind of, hit me the other day. I was like, man, they really did just run off with my money to Bahamas.
Yeah. No, Pierce, I really appreciate you sharing your heart on that. And then we don't want anyone to have to face that loss, face the devastation of what's been going on. This is so serious. And we want to make sure that you have confidence in the Deferred Sales Trust, where the money's at, how it's protected. Now, you have what's called indirect control. So let's speak to that, right? In fact, I was on a call with a potential Deferred Sales Trust client. His mom is selling a $3.5 million asset. This is her life savings. This is her retirement. And he exactly said that too. He's like, hey, how do we know you're not going to take all the money to Mexico? It's the same. I'm like, well, let's talk about financial advisors, right? And all of the securities and all the protections they have in places like TD Ameritrade and Charles Schwab. That is one place, and I'll have Jake touch on that in a minute. As well, if you partner with the trust, right? You partner with the trust, you form an LLC, and you go buy more real estate. You're able to open up an LLC, and the trust is able to partner with you, and you're able to be the managing member of that LLC. The way that we structure it, right? And so there's, I said, he was the son. I said, so you'll have access to see the funds. Your mom will have access to see the funds. I, as a trustee, I'll have access to see the funds. The third-party financial advisor will have access. We have a third-party tax attorney, a CPA group who does the tax returns. We have a third-party bank. We have the tax attorney who does the Deferred Sales Trust. We have even another group that oversees kind of all of the different parties. And you go, all of that together, there's a lot of people looking over the shoulders of the accounts. I'd actually argue that there's more protection because we're not in the same group. Like in the Madoff scheme, by the way, just so you know, he had everything in house. Like he had 2 floors, but they all worked for him, and he did all of his own books and he did all of this stuff. And that's how part of how he was able to keep the fraud and the going, because he was controlling all of the information. Right. And so it would take a lot of people who are in who are separate entities, by the way. We're separate entities on purpose for the integrity of the trust. And these are also, yes, separate individual business trusts that only do business with you and take your signature to move funds. So we have all of that in place, right? So that being said, you can't stop, if someone's going to steal money, you're going to steal money. But there are some huge protections in place. So Jake, you want to add any of that or fill anything in there?
And the other thing is that we're not custodying the money ourselves, as you mentioned with Bernie Madoff and everything else. I mean, literally there were his accounts that the money was going in and out of and everything else. And so there's a lot of protection. Charles Schwab, TD Ameritrade, any of these large custodians that provide the record keeping and reporting. Essentially, we're meeting within all of the protocols, all of the red tape. And we're dotting our I's, crossing our T's, helping make sure that the clients, at least from a transparency perspective, have access to everything and can see any movement that occurs.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, and you can, I always say too, we can say that, but then of course, talk with our clients, talk with our banks, talk with TD, talk with all of us. And as you start to put all of those things together, bring in your trusted professionals. This particular person, it was a real estate attorney who was very cautious. And I go, hey, he should be cautious. He should be skeptical, but he should also be willing to come on the calls with us. He should be willing to, spend time with our clients, spend time with the banks, so just really encourage him to come on with us to get to know us and get to see it all, versus just putting up the objections on the side and not actually engaging. So that's also a thing that we would encourage. So Pierce, is that, go ahead, Becca?
Sorry, no, you kind of mentioned having, at what point in time do you prefer to have their other advisors and people on the call? Like, is it in the initial time and then they just kind of reach out to you, or is it later on, or when do you prefer to have all the key players in the room?
We found the earlier the better. And we've actually found that from a client's perspective, if you have like a trusted CPA that you've done a lot of business with, that you want to have him in the driver's seat or the passenger seat as the car goes. You don't want them in the rear view mirror. If you're going, let's say the deal's closing in 30 days and you research it for, 15 days with us. And all of a sudden you're trying to bring him to give the rubber stamp. And he's like, I got like 2 weeks and like, I'm in tax season. And so the earlier is always better. And we encourage you to pay that CPA or pay that attorney to spend the time with us. On our side, you don't have to pay us. This is part of why we work on a conditional basis. We take all the pressure off of that. Or talk with them. We'll form the trust, look at the transaction, see how it can fit in. So earlier the better. Also, though, here's the other side of it. There are some general practitioners who, no matter what you might say or what we say, they may not ever say yes, right? For a number of reasons, because they feel like if I say yes and it doesn't work, then they might feel like they're on the hook. Or if they say no and it doesn't work, then yeah, they're that's what they said, right? So I found that it's earlier the better, and I found that if you can bring them to the table, 99% of them join us. They join us, and they start sending us more clients and more deals. And so, hopefully that answers the question, Micah.
Yep, thank you.
Absolutely. What else? Who else has questions or comments or thoughts? You can put it in the chat. You can unmute yourself. By the way, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to be on these calls or these Zoom meetings every week, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern. We would love for you to join us. Jake, you have any thoughts?
Yes. I mean, in the beginning, we talked a little bit about Thanksgiving, which is a holiday in the United States that we all like to celebrate and remember what we're thankful for. In the fact that I think touching on the deferred sales trust and other financial tools and instruments, it's nice to be appreciative that we don't just always have to pay the tax when the sales transaction occurs, in the sense that we have more options. And what Brett and I and everybody here on the panel, what we help people do is we help people understand what those options are, how they're applicable, how they can be customized to the situation, so that your otherwise taxable event can be optimized from not only the tax flow, but the investment side as well. And we try to look at things from both sides of the coin. One side being, hey, what I owe Uncle Sam, or what I don't have to owe right now, as well as what I can possibly get in a rate of return investing with the gross proceeds rather than proceeds net of taxes.
Yep. 100%. That's perfect. That's great. So
Jake, is the gains of the investment taxable to the client?
Typically, when people have the sale of an asset that is highly appreciated, there are capital gains taxes, depending on if it's inventory, depending on if it's held long-term, etc. So you could have either ordinary income or capital gains taxes, of which the Deferred Sales Trust is a tool that can be used to capture this event and defer the recognition of it to the future. That allows us to essentially sell, let's say, a multifamily house today and reinvest in a plumbing business tomorrow without having to chop up the proceeds to various government entities and then reinvest in a plumbing business with less. We get to reinvest in the plumbing business with almost everything that we have, or diversify, invest in a plumbing business, invest in a heating and air business, invest in an electrician's business, invest in a utility company. And that way a client can actually invest in the things that align with their objectives. Certain investments change over time, and clients' objectives change over time. So whether it's the investments that have changed or the client's objectives that are changed, one investment for the entire life of a client almost never is the most appropriate answer. And the movement in and out of these investments, to make it more efficient, you need to use financial tools like the Deferred Sales Trust.
Very well said, Jake. What else do we have here? By the way, we are introducing the 3 C's and T's. And so if you're saying like, what do I need to get started, or what's kind of the framework here? We're working on, in fact, we have this framework. It's called the 3 C's and T's, and C stands for capital. T stands for tax. And so the first C and T is capital and tax flow mindset. So part of that is like what Jake is talking about, understanding how and when things are taxed in certain ways, right? So think of it like cash flow, right? Cash flow, and think of it like tax flow. And as taxes go higher, right? And as debt goes higher, and as the government first inflates it, then they start to tax it even more to pay for all the stuff that they're spending money on. Okay. You need to have an increasingly tax flow mindset and be aware, because it's not just what you make, it's what you keep. Right. And so shifting from just cash flow or appreciation or wealth accumulation to tax flow and preservation, and then ways to help that to keep more of the wealth is so important. Right. So that's the first C and T, is capital and tax flow mindset. Number 2, part of the process here if you want to accomplish using the Deferred Sales Trust, is actually using a capital gains tax DST machine. And that's the Deferred Sales Trust. That's the actual product. So understanding the product, getting it in place, having your team line everything up, work with Jake Miller and myself, build out like a financial plan and a business plan for the trust, right? So it's actually getting the machine going and like the team assembled, right? And so once you have that, you have an eligible transaction, right? So that's important to make sure you qualify. Once you have that machine kind of built, what's cool, by the way, you can have one Deferred Sales Trust and then multiple promissory notes for multiple assets that you're selling, which is a neat way to consolidate and to bring in more equity, so that perhaps you can have a bigger down payment or bigger for a new opportunity. And the last one is capital and tax flow multipliers. So it's understanding how and where the funds are invested, but also ways to multiply your wealth, or multiply or increase your depreciation schedules, or eliminate estate tax, and buy and invest at optimal timing. So you combine these 3 C's and T's, and that itself, we found, unlocks transformation with your wealth, with maybe your time and your energy, with your location freedom, with your entrepreneurial freedom, with getting away and escaping the 1031 exchange, race. So having those freedoms. So that's what we want to encourage you to be thinking about. We want to help you build that. That being said, that's kind of all I have. Micah, do you have a thought? Micah, go ahead.
I do. So let's talk. I mean, a lot of times you're talking about people that are selling out of a business, so they have a big event that happens. Well, you also work with people that are doing real estate, right? So you said that they have to have $1 million to get started with the Deferred Sales Trust. But what happens if they have another property later on down the road that doesn't quite meet that $1 million mark? Can they still use that Deferred Sales Trust? Or what happens at that point?
The answer is it depends, but generally, yes. And for example, Jake and I actually have a client out of Texas. His total net worth is about 10 million, and he was selling a $250,000 property. And so I said, we typically will just say no to that. But in your context, and he was very enthusiastic about using the DST, I'm like, well, we typically say no if it was a one-off, but since in the context of the $10 million trust within the next 2 or 3 years, as you sell out of these assets, the answer is yes, because 2 reasons. Number one, gives you a chance to establish everything, get comfortable. It's almost like test driving the car, although he bought the car. I mean, we bought the trust, we're in it, but it's low stakes. It's 250, right? In comparison to his 10 million. Now, the other way around could have been, well, he started with 8 million or 10 million, and then he has an extra 250. Well, we would say, is it better than paying, 25 to 50% capital gains tax on that 250 if you've already established at least 1 million or 10 million in the trust? And the answer is yes, right? So it all depends, but generally speaking, yes, if and when you have at least 1 million, it starts to scale, right? It starts to be able to pay better, pay for itself. Jake, you want to add anything to that?
We have clients all the time that become an exception for one thing or another because their situation warrants it. We talk about in generality when we're presenting about the Deferred Sales Trust, just generally, what's a good fit, what's an easy win, what's a home run, but that doesn't mean that you can't still get around the bases by hitting singles and doubles. And so again, everybody's situation is different, and we love it when clients show up on the call so that they can ask questions about their specific situation. And then we can nail down specific details that fit for them. And that's kind of the exciting piece that is interesting, because then we can actually provide direct answers rather than generalities.
Absolutely. And by the way, we do have a couple folks. I want to encourage Adam, if Adam is there, and you can see and hear us, Adam. If it's the Adam, I believe it is. We can talk a little bit about. So, hey, Adam, how we doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. And so, Adam, I'm curious, what's your take on the FTX in the crypto world right now? I know you have some extensive experience in that background. It would be great to kind of have you share with the group here what you saw and what you're seeing out there.
Well, I have a fundamental philosophy on crypto, which sort of matches probably the earlier adopters of sort of how the technology can literally change our society, so to speak. The issue with what's happening here, I think, is just a matter of, which is totally natural, human beings wanting to make money, sometimes not wanting to make it in the honest way. But I think that what it's showing is that what was the fundamental reason for introducing Bitcoin and crypto is basically people being in charge of their own money. So, you have this custodial, exchange, where you transfer ownership of your crypto. We can see the consequences of that. So and I guess that's one question I have as far as the DSC trust. If you have your own crypto in a cold storage, for example, that's where you want it to be, and at least until they have some regulation happening here.
Yeah, in a way, Adam, it's kind of like an argument actually for crypto, if you think about it, right? Because the whole ownership aspect here is part of the freedom that is really attractive with cryptocurrency, right? But if you're going to give that up to, or at least the custodian of the holding of that, then all of a sudden you open yourself up to this kind of thing. If the people aren't, and you can say the same thing for JP Morgan or Charles Schwab or TD Ameritrade, right? If the people are not honest and have integrity and have compliance and protections in place, right? It's happening. So in other words, it's kind of an argument for crypto if you think about it, right? But
it is
crypto, but for cold storage, yeah.
Right. That's the fundamental idea of crypto. It's like not your keys, not your coins, right? It's you want to, but that entails responsibility. And also the problem is, okay, you have crypto, but how do you transfer it to dollars, which is basically the medium of exchange that our society is on right now. So, you can't, at least there's ways of transferring Bitcoin, and the DeFi space, but obviously most people want to use dollars. So that's why the exchanges are there. Exchange the crypto for dollars so you can, or, unless you want to use the crypto and take out a loan on the crypto, because again, transferring, you're basically transforming the crypto into dollars or some other form of currency. And that's the risk, obviously, there, right? Because, so what the idea is, you want to, if you need to use the exchange to use dollars, okay, so you put in an exchange, do your business, and then take it back out and put it on, make sure the crypto is back in your possession, so to speak.
Yep. No, I think it's very well said, Adam. And if you're curious on how we've done that with the deferred sales transactions that we've done with crypto so far, we've used Kraken, right? Kraken's what we used. We have no issues with them. But we do it for a short period of time. We actually transfer into Kraken and then immediately sell it to cash, and then have the cash, once it hits Kraken, go to a US bank account in the name of the trust. And so that's there's a short window there that, so far we've had to use a third-party exchange like a Kraken. But that's we've never used FTX, never done any business with them. So that's what would you say, Adam, is the difference between someone like a Kraken versus a Coinbase versus like an FTX, that before all this all went down, that maybe you saw, being that you're in the space and you really understand it better than most? Did you see any red flags with someone like an FTX and just knew to stay away from them, or what's kind of your take on that?
In my humble opinion, you don't trust anyone. I'm sorry to say. I mean, and it can, because it's a risk either way. You don't know exactly what's happening behind the scenes. So there's a bit of trust there, which is the whole principle with crypto, is to not trust. It's the ledger is based on verification, not trust. So potentially any company could potentially, it's a risk, and so to say, I would just say that the best policy, and again, this is repeated many times with the hardcore fundamentalists, not your keys, not your coins. So you have to, if you have to transfer your Bitcoin into a form of currency, you do that business or trade, and then I always put a stash in your own possession.
Right. And so I'm curious, let's say you had Bitcoin and you were going to exit. Do you have like a exchange of choice? And of course you would probably send over a small amount to verify it, and then a small amount to the bank account, so to make sure all the pipes are connected to actually get to where you're going to go with a small amount, so you're not risking big. But do you have, is it a Coinbase? Is it a Kraken? What's kind of your go-to?
Well, I think Coinbase or your Kraken, I mean, these are, well, especially Coinbase being a public company, I mean, there's going to be some scrutiny, but then again, what about Enron? That was a public company as well. So, you do the best you can. We're in a time right now where it's still the wild, wild west, and it's just going to be risk. That's just the bottom line. And you just want to manage your risks. So you have to know, okay, if you're going to use these exchanges, it's where the judgment call comes in. Okay, I'm going to put a stash, a certain percentage of my funds, and do that, transferring that amount. And it's just that's where the personal responsibility comes into with this crypto at this time. And until they pass regulation and stringent security measures with these exchanges, it's always going to be a risk. But I would say Coinbase, Coinbase, and there's some other Kraken. At least there's something there.
Yeah. And even then, when we did it through Kraken, we did small amounts. Exactly what I said. We started out with small amounts, connected to the bank account. Client verified it with where it was going to land in the US bank account, and we just connected those things, and then live with the 2FA authentication codes, small amounts, and then bigger amounts, and then bigger amounts, and bigger amounts, and then within, let's say 48, 72 hours, all of it had gone into Kraken and sold to cash, and then transferred out to the US bank account. So there was that window, but it all worked out so far. And again, back to the client who had Bitcoin at 50,000, went to 50 million, and at 54,000 a coin, she exited 5 million of the 50 million. There was difference between now and 70% was going through that, but wasn't without all of some level of trust, right? With us, with the companies, with Kraken.
If the DST had its own on coins or private keys, then maybe the client could transfer directly to the trust's
exactly right
keys. Yeah, so you'd have
exactly
your own.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. It had its own account at Kraken. That's the key, right? And so
and then you could transfer from Kraken to your own cold storage owned by the DST Trust, perhaps. So that way
you could do it that way too. Yeah, you could do it that way too. Although we would say if you're looking to exit that amount to cash, then hold on to what you have if you're not ready to exit that out. But you are correct if you said, I just wanted to put it in cold storage. The trust itself could also have its own cold storage, right? And so there's there's
and
ways.
when you want to liquidate, then you can take a certain amount, transfer that to the Kraken, and then liquidate that way, perhaps.
Yeah.
Well, I think that brings up an interesting question, like as far as like the DST is concerned, because if you're, let's just say you sold an asset, right? And crypto is like an asset that you want to invest in. Where do you guys hold the funds? Are you guys holding them on the centralized exchanges? Do you guys have a ledger? Like, how is that going down?
So generally speaking, the Deferred Sales Trust hasn't invested in any crypto. Like most everyone we have has been either in a U.S. bank account, investment real estate, or investment grade securities. So we do have one client who has invested into some crypto, a small amount of the DST funds, and we did that one through an LLC, and he formed the LLC, and the trust was a joint venture partner in that LLC, and then he made that investment wherever he made that investment at, right? And then now he might have had that on cold storage, or he might have it on an exchange. I believe he used Coinbase for that one. So that's where he's at with his investments. If that makes sense, Pierce.
So yeah, let's say something. I mean, because FTX was not a small exchange. I mean, is the third largest exchange. You know, you have Binance, you know, Coinbase, and then FTX. And, you know, people are talking about crypto.com being, you know, possibly insolvent. I mean, these are like the companies that have their names on stadiums right now. You know, like this is not a small deal. So I mean, like, yeah, I was just curious. Like, I didn't think about that. Like, how is so he formed an LLC and then he's basically in control of the keys, or like
yeah, no, exactly right. Yeah, he's formed the LLC, and he's in control of the keys. Exactly right. Yeah, and then but he has an obligation to pay back the LLC, you know, per that's return, and then that pays back the trust. And so just like if you were to buy real estate, right, and you partner with the trust and you form an LLC, and it needs to be investment real estate, can't just be personal, right? But you go open up the bank account in the name of that LLC, and it could be your local bank in a different state. And now you go with that LLC, you go buy that property or buy that asset. So in that sense, you have the logins to that bank account. You're also going to have to file the tax return for that LLC and follow the partnership guidelines, right? But that's exactly right. That's the beauty of the Deferred Sales Trust, is to be able to, again, it's indirect control. But when you partner with the trust, you have, you're the managing member of that LLC, and you're holding the keys in that scenario. That's exactly right, Pierce.
That's interesting. Because right now it's going to be, I mean, depending upon your beliefs and, you know, in the future of Bitcoin and whatnot, it's probably a good time to start buying again. We're getting to that bottom. So
you can make that argument. Yeah, you can make that argument.
Who are truthers, you know, are licking their lips right now because it's down a lot.
Yep, absolutely. No, I don't disagree. Adam, you want to add anything else to the conversation on this? We have just like 2 minutes left.
Oh, well, just thank you for listening. And yeah, I agree. I think as the market is crashing, of course, it looks like to be a good investment. But the big lesson there is understanding that, you know, the point of Bitcoin and crypto, at least in its early intention, is to empower the individual to own their money. So when you give that power up to a central authority, we can see the risks involved with that. Until things improve, where technology allows us to, and regulation allows us to use these central authorities while still retaining some verification and evidence of what's happening, we all have to be very careful.
Absolutely. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Pierce. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Micah. Thank you, everyone else who joined us today. Appreciate everybody being a part of our Deferred Sales Trust kind of masterclass, talking about FTX today and ways to exit crypto so you don't have to feel trapped by capital gains tax or have to face this kind of disaster that just happened. If you do want to take next steps with the Deferred Sales Trust, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. It's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We have the free ebook there. That ebook is kind of sell your business, crypto, or real estate in 9 easy steps. It's kind of a short book. Then we have the other big book that's coming online here in the next 30 days or so. It's called Building a Tax Deferred Exit Strategy. This will be on Amazon, and it's a proven playbook for unlocking your wealth plan, ideal wealth plan when selling assets of any kind for yourself or for your clients. So make sure to pick up a copy of this. It's my story. It's kind of all kind of a lot of the details about like how this all came to be and how you can kind of start your own today. As well, we have Jake Miller, who's in the book. He's also a chapter, and then we have some people like Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank. So it's pretty cool. That being said, if you want to connect with Jake Miller, Jake, where can they find you?
strategictaxsolutions.com, as well as you can email me. Information's on the website, 800 number 1-800-773-1848.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Pierce, if they want to connect with you, where can they find you?
You guys can find me at kingdomluxuryrealty.com.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, gals. Talk soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Yep.
Bye now.